Namaskar viewers, hello and welcome to Sansad TV. I'm Tina Jha, you're watching Perspective. On the show today, we focus on a development that could reshape the way India builds, plans and protects lives, especially in its most fragile regions. So India has released a major update to its national seismic zonation map under the revised earthquake design code. For the first time ever, the entire Himalayan arc has been placed in the highest risk category, Zone 6. The overhaul shows that 61% of the country now falls under moderate to high earthquake hazard zones, meaning well over 2/3 of India's population is now living in seismically active regions. Scientists say this is one of the most significant seismic assessment revisions done in decades. It brings uniformity to the Himalayan belt, which earlier was split across zones 4 and 5, despite sharing similar tectonic stresses. The Bureau of Indian Standards, which released the map, has now urged all new construction to immediately adopt the 2025 code, not the 2016 one, because the way we build from this point forward could determine the scale of future disasters. In order to understand in greater detail what this new map really tells us, what risks we've been underestimating so far, and whether our cities and infrastructure are prepared for the future, I'm joined by two experts, so allow me to begin the program by introducing them to you first. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome Dr. Vineet Gehlot. He is Director of the Wadia Institute of Himalayan Geology and former Director of the National Centre for Seismology. Dr. Gehlot, thank you for joining us on the program. Welcome to Sansad TV.
Thank you. Thank you.
Also pleased to have with us on the show Professor Mahendra Pratap Bisht. He is Head of the Department of Geology at HNB Garhwal University. Professor, glad to have you with us on the telecast as well. So, Dr. Gehlot, let's begin the program with you before we come to the findings, the basis on which the revision has been done, and also the implications and the impact that it will have going forward. Give us and our viewers a sense of why was an update to India's seismic zonation map necessary at this stage? When did the entire process of updation begin? How was it done, and so on? Because there are so many questions to begin with that will help us understand the need and the context of the updated map.
Thank you. See, every country has got a seismic zoning map, and these zoning maps, they come in different style. I mean, there are maps which are continuously being updated, upgraded. There are various methods of preparing these zoning maps, and depending upon our understanding, depending upon the process, and depending upon how much history we know about earthquake in a particular continent, and depending upon how much information we have about the tectonic features of that country or that area, these maps are updated. So these maps started much, long ago, and the recent upgradation which has been done is in this year. If you look at a few previous research work which has been done in understanding seismic hazard in Himalaya, I mean, because I'm talking about Himalaya because that's where the maximum change has been done, or I would say appreciable change has been. We have noticed appreciable change there. So if you look at the previous seismic hazard zonation map by researchers, all of us, those who work in Himalaya, we know that, look, entire Himalaya is vulnerable for earthquake, entire Himalaya is susceptible for great earthquake, and hence, saying that this region is less prone or less susceptible to earthquake as compared to that segment, to us it doesn't sound good. And if you look at the previous version of it, if you just look at, for example, Uttarakhand, right? Uttarakhand in the previous map consisted two zones, Zone 5 and Zone 4. So that means there is some area of Uttarakhand which is more vulnerable than rest of the area. Now this was, to me, or at least many of us, it was not a good idea, because we think that entire Himalayan belt, especially the regions where we have largest population, the Shivaliks and Lesser Himalaya, the region which has got high ground response, in the sense that if the rock is hard or if the rock is soft, that region is equally vulnerable or equally susceptible for damage in future great earthquake. So that way, we didn't want to distinguish between region like, for example, Dharchula or Munsiari, for that matter, and the region, for example, Dehradun. So, and this is what was there in the previous map. We thought that all these regions, they lie in high seismic hazard zonation region, and hence they should be put together. And that's what has been done in this particular revision. Entire Himalayan belt, if you look at from sorry, Jammu Kashmir to Himachal to Uttarakhand to Sikkim to Arunachal, everything has been put in seismic zone 6, and that's, to me, that's a very good step towards seismic safety for this country.
Sure. So we will try and also understand from you about the disaster preparedness, about the implications going forth. Let me also bring in Professor Bisht into the discussion. Professor, how do you see the reclassification of the entire Himalayan arc into Zone 6 for the first time? It will, of course, change not just the conversation, but also the approach going forth around land use planning in our Himalayan states, like that of Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, also states in the northeast.
Yes, I'm 100% agree with the Professor Beneath that because we experienced the earthquakes when the Uttarkasi and Chamoli earthquakes in 1991 and 99. So from that time, we saw that the maximum population density in the Lesser Himalayan region. So most of the area, whether it is in the Teri or the Pauri or the Chamoli, even we saw when we visited entire area that the impact of these earthquakes were equally as well as what we have classified into Zone 5 and Zone 4. So both area was equally affected. So that day onward, really I was also thinking on that line, that why the people are classified into this way, that it is because the area is equal slopes, the slope conditions are same, the terrain characteristics are the same, and the tectonic activity, boundaries also, that we call it a MBT, MCT also, those are the active tectonic zones are also marked over here, right from east to west, northeast to northwest, entire Himalayan belt. So why we have segregated into two parts? But I think the people have now think, or the people like Beneath, they are rightly said that the entire zone must be considered into one. And the impact, because we observed in the last 50 years, me particularly, what I observed, that the zone is very sensitive, and then it should be considered into one category, whatever it is, 7th or the 6th or the 8th, whatever you want to consider, it should be considered into one.
So about the future preparedness is something that we'll also try and understand. Dr. Gehlot, coming back to you, because there are so many changes that have been done. The BIS has said the map is based on internationally accepted probabilistic seismic hazard assessment, which is called the PSHA method. In practical terms, if you could simplify it for our viewers, how does this shift change our understanding of where the next major earthquake is most likely to occur, so that it can give us enough time and opportunity to prepare for the upcoming disaster?
Okay, I think I must sort of slightly correct you here, that here what we are talking is about the hazard. We are not talking about the possibility of earthquake occurrence using this map. What we are talking, that in case a big earthquake occurs here, what is the hazard which you expect here? What is the acceleration or what is the damage you expect in these regions? So from that perspective, if you compare Zone 2, for example, you compare Zone 2 is like Hyderabad, or I guess Nagpur is also there, Aurangabad is there. I could read it in the map. Now, the kind of structure which you are going to make in Zone 2 and the kind of structure, the same structure which you are going to make in Zone 6, the precautions and the seismic safety to strengthen the building will be totally different, because each zone has got there's something called seismic coefficient, there's something called seismic safety, that for this zone 6 you need to take this much of safety, for zone 2 you need to take less safety, you need to take, you need to invest less on seismic safety of the building. Seismic safety in the sense that if an earthquake occurs here, then what is the likelihood of damage in that region, and how big that earthquake could be, how much damage that earthquake, how much potential of damage that particular earthquake will have. So those are the things which are linked in this map, and the direct implication of this is how you're going to build the structures. The structures built in seismic zone 6 and the same structure built in seismic zone 2, they are going to be different, because the hazard perception is different in these two regions.
So, Dr. Gehlot, when the BIS urges adoption of the 2025 code for all kinds of new construction, the question that arises is, from a scientific perspective, what design modifications will the high risk, the zone 6 towns urgently need to prioritize then?
Okay, so we don't generally talk these standards. We don't enforce on public, right? For public, for if I want to make my house in Dehradun or in Hyderabad, then I'll just take some basic precautions on constructing the earthquake resistant building. But then these codes are more applied on structures which are called big structures. For example, you want to construct a dam, or you want to construct a huge bridge over a river in Uttarakhand area. So that's where you will implement these codes. And as I said, each code has got is attached to it. As you said, probabilistic seismic hazard assessment, right? Mm-hmm. So that means it tells that look, in next 100 years, what is the likelihood that the acceleration or the force because of a future earthquake will be this much, right? For example, if I say zone 6, then I would say that look, the possibility of in next few hundred years, I don't remember the exposure period, I think it was few hundred years, the acceleration because of the earthquake can exceed more than 0.6 or 0.7 G. Now that's a huge acceleration. That's a huge force which will be which will be subjected onto the structure. So accordingly, people, depending upon the life of the structure, people will take those safety measures. Okay. If the structure is short-lived structure, then you will not you don't need to bother too much about zoning map. But if suppose if you're making a dam, right, which lasts for a few decades, that's where you need to look at that. What is the seismic coefficient which I need to put to strengthen the building in Uttarakhand? So that's what this code tells you.
Okay, I'll also take a related question on the implications on infrastructure with Professor Bisht. Professor, you understand the region well, and I ask you this for better clarity, because many of the existing structures were built as per the older standards. So when we have updated the code, when we urge all new construction now to follow the new code, will this revision also imply that there is need for systemic updation, also systemic retrofitting also to these structures, although these are very, very large structures that we are talking about, but given the new, what do we say, the seismic reality of this region, will we need that kind of systematic retrofitting in these structures that were built as per the old standards? What is your assessment?
Actually, I think with the passage of time, we learned so many things from these high seismic activity in the Himalaya. As you know, that initially our houses in the Himalayan terrain were those small houses, and they were less in number in the slopes or higher slopes. But now, with the passage of time, the density and the populations of these houses are more and more in the high slopes, and these slopes are probably, it looks like now unstable. Take the example of the Josimat and Pauri, Masuri, Nainital, so many big cities over here in the Uttarakhand. We observe that because I'm just when I was a kid, and today what I'm seeing that Josimat, initially there was a very limited house over there, and then now we have constructed a huge buildings over there, 7-story, multi-story, and very close to each other. Whenever these small seismic tremors are over there, they definitely impact these slopes, because one thing, we are increasing the load over the slopes, and another is the accelerating factor, that is your seismicity. Now, seismicity is a very important factor in this Himalayan terrain. As rightly said beneath, sir, that with the increase of this intensity, we have to, take a very high seismic, precautions for the seismic point of view. So the precautions must be there, and there must be some building codes, rules for this. Otherwise, as and when these quakes will occur, they're definitely going to be making a havoc in this terrain. So we have to very clear on these points, that with the impact of this, or whenever we'll get this high seismic activity over there, definitely there will be n number of loss we are getting. We are probably we are getting. So I think the planners should think over it. With these norms, we have to stick on these building codes and the slope stability measures and the criteria for the construction of the multi-story building. Even not
That's
only
an important point
not
that you
only big
made.
dams, not only big dams, but even these big houses or built buildings also.
That's an important point that you've made about high density urbanization, which seems to be expanding even in steep Himalayan terrains. Dr. Gehlot, a quick reaction from you on what do you think on this aspect from a geological point of view? Do you agree that there should be places where construction should not be permitted given the new seismic reality, but also despite the fact that there are newer engineering solutions, the threat perception will always be larger?
I mean, this is there's absolutely no doubt, or there's absolutely no discussion required on this subject. I mean, the ground which is not good for example, I mean, if somebody wants to build a 25-story house in somewhere in higher Himalaya, I mean, nobody would agree to that, right? So every place is attached with vulnerability, right? So we need to respect that vulnerability. We need to make sure that we don't the kind of construction which you do in plains is certainly not applicable in the hilly region. So you need to adopt appropriate measures. You need to make sure that you respect the seismic safety, you respect the process which is operating there. So there's absolutely no doubt on this, that yes, the construction practices have to be different, the norms have to be different, and that's the reason because of which seismic zone 6, the moment you are in Himalaya and then you are in plains, I mean, for example, further south, it's seismic zone 2. So that clearly tells you that, look, seismic safety and the way we construct houses are going to be different. In fact, and especially when the population is increasing, housings are increasing, number of houses are increasing. So we need to make sure, to further emphasize this point. I mean, we know that there are slopes which are critical. There are slopes which are not suitable for construction. Take for example case of Dharali, right? Making house in a fan in a flood, in an area which which has been frequently affected by the rubbles which has come down, is certainly not a good idea. So those areas need to be avoided, whether these are critical slopes or whether these are fans, alluvial fan or the fluvial fan. Those areas need to be avoided.
In fact, the vulnerability that you spoke about
Sure.
is not just limited to the Himalayan states. As per the updated map, nearly 61% of India now falls in moderate to high hazard zones. In that context, Professor Bisht, where do you see the most urgent gaps in India's urban development policies? How should we prepare for the road ahead in terms of not just the construction, but also in terms of the awareness, enhancing the risk communication aspect, making people aware about the risk threats, the perceptions, and also most importantly about preparedness at different levels, right from construction to all sorts of aspects related to it?
I think recently one of the member of the NDMA, we visited in the entire higher reaches of the Uttarakhand, and then we came into conclusion that after 25 years of this Uttarakhand, still we don't have a disaster plan, management plan till to date. This is one of the important gaps, because we have to have at least basic norms to prepare the basic norms. Second thing, we don't have building codes. Till to date, we don't have any building codes. We have to generate a certain building, because the area is so vulnerable in this entire Himalayan terrain. We know, because the slopes are unstable, rivers, water, every day, the activity you might have seen, the Himachal and the Uttarakhand and even Leh Ladakh recently, that all activities, all destruction in the slopes. And slopes, not only those are, most of the people, those are settled in the valleys. So there is no plan till to date. So this is one of the important gap. I think the government and the planners should think over it. There should be the norms, strict norms. Where should we construct the buildings or the village or the township, and how they, what are the basic standard norms for this? We should prepare these standard norms for that.
That's right. Dr. Gehlot, a question related to enhancing communication and public awareness. How do we bridge the gap between science and society? We need to make sure that the understanding of the risk that we have spoken about does not remain restricted to just the scientists, the geologists and the policymakers. It should reach the ordinary citizens, because at the end of the day, it is the change in approach that they will adapt will make a whole lot of difference.
Fully agree on this. The problem with our community is that our memory is very short-lived. We had damages seen in case of Kilari earthquake, then Bhuj earthquake. Thousands of people lost their life, and we learned that, look, the way structures were built, the way buildings were constructed, they were not appropriate. They were not, even the basic norms were basically flouted. So that's where we need to continuously shake our community through awareness, through outreach. To me, every government, and the process will start from government buildings. If in a government building, if I can, for example, look at any secretariat, right? A lot of people visit secretariat. Now, if secretariat, I'm just giving an example. If all these government buildings, they started following these norms, they started putting these posters, they started putting these precautions, then because thousands of people visit these places, I'm sure people will certainly take these into their notice. That's one part. We as scientists, unfortunately, we are bad communicator. We don't communicate properly to our society, and that's where all of us, we feel that we need to have something called science communicators, something called science journalists, right? People like you who will give a good flavor to what we are saying, and who can communicate to the local community. That's what is largely missing in our communication. We as scientists, we go to school, we go to um, a few places here and there, but then probably the message is not going to them, or if it is going, it's very short lived. So they just listen to it. They just witness. This people saw Joshimat, people saw Dharali, people saw Tharali, people saw everything. But then I'm sure wait for another few years, 2 years, 3 years. I'm sure there will be construction in Dharali again. So, but that's where public outreach is important. That's where we continuously need to shake up people, continuously need to warn people that look, this is not this is not the place to construction for construction. This is not the best practice you are following for construction.
That's
So we
right. The
need to.
policies stand in their place,
So,
but it's their implementation that will
so
reflect on the ground, and that's more important. That will happen only through the right communication and the right kind of outreach, public outreach that Dr. Gehlot spoke about. We're running out of time, but Professor Bisht, I'll take one last comment from you on how do we strengthen this public outreach, especially in the high risk areas. Do you think seismic literacy is something that should be made compulsory in schools, in colleges, so that you are aware of the kind of risk zone that you live in, and you're able to take timely action? And I ask you this because perhaps we can take a leaf or two out of some of the schools that down south we see they're taught about floods, about in the coastal states, about flood and cyclone preparedness. So perhaps it's also time to replicate that in the seismic high risk zone areas, wherein this kind of literacy will help save a lot of lives.
So in this, I like to say, because since 2013 onward, we all geologists and the social workers like Chandip Shah Bhatji and all, we were continuously knocking to the door of the government that there must be a consideration of this scientific, dialogues which we are talking about, the natural hazards, landslides, earthquakes, floods. We are regularly knocking to the government that there must be some consideration of this science in your policies. So thank God, this year, Government of India, UGC has given one direction to each and everyone, even NDMA, in every university, that there must be some basic course for the natural hazards. So this is first time I'm telling you through your media that I am supposed to be the coordinator of that in my university, and you're surprised to know that I am continuously teaching 800 students and 2 days every week 2 days on these natural hazards and this. This is first time. Actually, this is one of the things after long, I think people realize that this science is very, very important to be communicated to the mass. So once we communicate this, even despite of the science, arts, everyone has to be read, and they have a 4 credit marks, to clear. Without clearing this disaster management course, one cannot clear their graduation. So this is one of the important steps taken by the Government of India, which is appreciable. So
That's
I think
remarkable to hear from you, Professor Bisht. You're doing your bit, but the larger message that we would like to send across through this telecast is that in order to have a safer future, it's important that science, governance and society must work together. Only then we will be able to protect the future lives. Time allows us to take up only that much on the program. Thank you once again, Dr. Gehlot, Professor Bisht, for joining in with your valuable thoughts and insights. And to you viewers, thank you very much for your time as well.
To watch more programs of Sansad TV, subscribe to our YouTube channel and don't forget to like and share them.